Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, the place to come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker and welcome to episode 254, Healing Childhood Trauma While Parenting, with Emily Cleghorn. Well, welcome back to this month where we will be getting into the idea that we all need each other and how a solid support system is everything when it comes to healing. Now, last week, it was all about men and men's groups, and if you missed that one, please check it out. Jason Lang was a joy to speak with and has some great resources for men. Well, this week, we're going to focus on another group of people who I think can never have enough love and support or tools, and that is new parents, especially new moms, who invariably struggle with parenting while they have old wounds that need healing. I invited my next guest on the show because I have sat with so many new moms who are looking for help with parenting when their own trauma keeps coming up and making it so difficult for them to be as calm and loving as they want to be. But first, make sure you hit the show notes and check out the resources that I have available if you haven't already. There's a free Boundaries ebook that has lots of great information, including a written ebook and mini podcasts that I create around it. And there are worksheets and thought provokers to get you working on yourself. And if you want more, then get into my 3-part masterclass all about how you lost your voice, why that happened, and how to get it back. And then if you want more in-depth work and to really move the needle in your life, check out my 6-month, 12-module immersive course, Find Your Voice, a self-study component and some great group coaching, and some one-on-one with me if you need it. All that information is in the show notes. If you have any questions, you know just to reach out to me. I answer every message. Okay, so this week I had the privilege of speaking with a trauma recovery coach for a group of women that I think, again, need more help than we give them and also have a lot of guilt and shame around speaking up and asking for help. So their struggles are often not spoken about or addressed. And that's why I was so excited to have Emily on the show this week. So Emily Cleghorn is an award-winning trauma recovery coach, an author, a podcaster, and an inspirational speaker on a mission to support trauma-surviving mamas to navigate triggers and tantrums as they heal their own childhood trauma in the midst of parenting. Passionate about creating positive ripples for generations to come, Emily shares her powerful story of overcoming the veil her own trauma had placed over her life to inspire audiences and readers that they too can achieve peace and healing. Emily helps new mamas navigating triggers from childhood to break free from their trauma and become the mama they needed for their babies. An industry expert and an Amazon best-selling author who untriggered her mamahood as a mama of 2 babies 18 months apart while navigating day-to-day life. So, unfortunately, the last part of her interview did not make it. We did it during a solar storm, and we felt the effects, but I thought I wanted to keep it anyway because what she had to say was so important. I thought it mattered more that you are able to hear her and connect with her than to hear the entire conversation. So we got most of it. And yes, some parts of it are a little choppy and hard to hear, but it's worth it. So here is Emily. Thank you, Emily, for coming to be on the show. I'm really excited to have you here. And I'm really excited to have you share with listeners what's brought you to this place in your work and tell us all about your work and how you got here and all of the things. And I just want to hand it over to you to kind of get started to tell us your story, your journey.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, my name is Emily Cleghorn. I am the founder and CEO of Mended Soul Wellness. I am a holistic trauma recovery coach. And I didn't start there though. I became a mama in 2018. And, at that point thought, oh, all of the garbage that happened in my early childhood, that's years in the past. Right. It doesn't matter anymore. Oh boy, was I wrong. Because it came barreling down the tracks like a freight train going 100 miles an hour and sideswiped me. And there I was in my early postpartum days, dealing with all of the hormone changes and the transition into motherhood, which is huge all on its own, but also dealing with all of these repressed emotions that are demanding to be dealt with. So that's where my healing journey started. Was there on my living room couch looking down at my adorable look-alike baby girl and thinking, I got to get out of here. I've got to get out of here. It's not safe. And those thoughts were deeply, deeply rooted in my childhood and the maternal abandonment that I dealt with as a little girl. And so it's been a journey of nurturing my nervous system, healing my nervous system, and other parts of other aspects of my health and well-being, because it manifested physically as well. But nurturing my nervous system has been a huge part of my journey.
And that makes perfect sense that it would affect your nervous system and it would affect you physically and how you just wanted to run. And we know that a lot of this stuff comes to the fore when she has a baby.
Yeah, it's such a big transition. Going from not being a mother to having this infant that is dependent on you for everything. That alone is a big transition. Add into the mix the trauma and the abandonment that some people experience in their early childhood that alters their perception of what parenthood is. It adds an element of complexity that we don't talk about very often. The transition into motherhood is huge all on its own, without considering the trauma, the abandonment that trauma survivors are walking into parenthood with. And it shifts our perspective of what parenthood is and can be, and what that parent-child relationship is or can be. And it's something that we don't talk about a lot.
Exactly. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show, so that we are talking about this more and that you're normalizing it for new moms. I think that's so important, especially the piece about not having been nurtured yourself and not being able to have internalized that nurturing and not feeling as confident, because technically that's where we're supposed to draw it from, just like other mammals do, right?
Yeah. So if if you are walking into motherhood without knowing how to manage your emotions, without knowing what a healthy mother-child relationship, whether it's mother-daughter or mother-son, or what having a support system looks like in a spouse or other people in your network. Right. Not having those skills is huge in how your postpartum days are going to go and going forward into, toddler years and early childhood and all of those things. So, and then there's also the narrative that self-care for moms is selfish. And, that's not helpful.
Right. No. In fact, it makes things twice as hard.
Absolutely.
You're right.
Yeah. So when you are a new parent and you're transitioning into parenthood without the skills of knowing how to manage your emotions, or your nervous system is on edge because that's the norm that you grew up in, and it's not abundantly clear to you until you've got this child screaming and you can't handle it. Those skills matter. Right. And if you don't have them from childhood, if you didn't learn them, then now there's some work to be done. You have to kind of backpedal a little bit.
So what did you do? Where did you start getting help around all of this?
Well, at the very, very beginning of my journey, there was a lot of shame and guilt associated with how I was feeling. So I struggled alone for a couple of months, feeling like an awful mom, an awful person, an awful wife. That was the narrative going on in my head. It wasn't until I opened up to my husband that I found a therapist who I could do a Zoom session with. And she really helped me to define the boundaries of where my biological mom stopped and I started, because that boundary was very fuzzy for me. And then helped me to define where I stopped and my daughter started. Differentiating that the choices that my mom made when I was an infant are her choices. They're valid given the experience, what she had to work with at the time, and I am different. I was my own person in 2018, still am, and the experience that I make with my daughter and now my son as well does not have to be defined by the decisions that were made by my mom in the late 80s or in early 90s. So having that clarity gave me the ability to lift my head up a little bit and say, okay, those choices were in the past. Those were not my choices. I was a victim of the circumstance, but I can make new choices. And that's powerful when you have that realization that you can make your own choices.
Yeah.
And the trauma that you had, that those choices that created trauma for you don't have to be your choices. That's huge.
That's really huge. That gets you out of your fight or flight or freeze or fawn or run away or,
Yeah, and so once I had that realization, then I was able to start building what I call my trigger toolbox and accumulating the coping skills and the strategies that could help me in those stressful moments of a kid throwing a temper tantrum or a colicky baby or, whatever was going on in my life when my nervous system felt like it was going to frazzle, that I could use to unfrazzle.
Right. And did you learn those in therapy, or these are things that you came up with as you continued on your journey?
Well, I picked up the tools that I have in my toolbox in different places. So one of the tools that been in my toolbox for a really long time has been journaling. So when I was a little girl and I was going to see a child psychologist, and we were talking about how I struggled to communicate with my words because it was unsafe, she instructed me to write down my feelings. Write it down in a letter form. And you don't have to give it to the person. You can if you want to, if you're brave enough, but you don't have to. But the act of writing them down gets them out of your body and helps you to process them a little bit more. And so as I've aged over the years, that letter writing practice, I still use it sometimes, has adapted into journaling. And so my journal is a judgment-free zone. When I get that pen in my hand and I'm writing in my journal, I allow it to flow without judgment. Whatever comes out, comes out. If it's a bunch of nonsense, whatever. But oftentimes I can read back what I've written, and that's where the release comes in. And it's huge. Other tools I picked up when I was doing my certification process for health and life coaching, I learned mindful breathing, different mindful breathing techniques. I've tried my hand at meditation, although I can't quite get my brain quiet enough for that. And, just different things that I can do, hobbies and practices that help me calm my nervous system. So, for example, I really like listening to music. So if I'm finding that I'm getting stressed out, I'll turn on a playlist and just listen to my music. Or I really enjoy sewing. So if I'm finding that I'm getting really stressed out, I'll get my sewing machine out and start a project or continue working on a project. And those creative outlets are great for calming your nervous system.
Right, exactly. I mean, the journaling, validating your feelings and your thoughts and your experiences and your needs is a great idea to get that out there and to validate them and make them real and to, I guess, acknowledge them is the only word I can think of. It's probably a better word, but to acknowledge them that they're real, because part of healing from trauma and part of feeling more grounded is to not be in fear, but to be in choice and to say, that's what I feel and that's what I need and that's okay. And I make sense and I can trust myself and I can honor those things. And I think it gets us out of the limbic system when we can do that more and more and to be more mindful, like you said, because what we do know is when we're in fight or flight or freeze or fawn, a lot of things go offline in our brain. And
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about calming down your nervous system and getting back in touch with all of you, like all of the parts of you, all
Yeah.
the parts of your brain, so that you can make thoughtful decisions. Because we know when we react in the moment, it's not often very rational.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
and it's not supposed to be. If there's a bear trying to eat you, you're not supposed to be worried about, wow, do I have the right jeans on? Like, no, right? Or how nice am I being right now? No. And so, right.
No.
And I heard that the other day, like, gosh, that makes so much sense, right? And so the becoming grounded and honoring your feelings, that is so important. And I think what's really profound is that's doable. Like the things you just mentioned, these are things that we can do, we can try to do.
Yeah. Yeah, in small pockets of your day, especially if you're a mama with toddlers or busy kids and you're on the go a lot, you can breathe while you're driving down the road.
Right.
You can journal in 3 minutes if that's all the time that you have. You can go for a walk.
Right.
Put your kids in the stroller and just go for a walk and pray or meditate as you walk. Like, there are things that you can do in the small pockets of your day that can help you to regulate your nervous system.
Yes. That's a very good point. I think we can get caught up in the perfect or horrible. If I don't have 3 hours to do it, I can't do it at all, kind of all or nothing. And what you're saying is, no, that's not true. And all the little things that you do add up.
Yeah.
And they do mitigate some of the stress and they do matter. And I like to think about when, I don't know, you're on vacation or you're having a peaceful weekend and something came up. You probably handled it a lot better.
Well,
Like,
yeah.
on a day when you were not as grounded. And so finding the little things that you can do.
Yeah. I have learned how to regulate my nervous system in the years of having young kids. So when I started out in 2018 and I had an infant, my nervous system couldn't handle much stimulus at all. My daughter is turning 6 in September, and now I can handle those, to an extent, those temper tantrums and loud noises and stimulants that kids just naturally produce. And, you know, it hasn't been easy. I will be honest and straightforward in that. It has not been easy doing it while having two under two. But, you know, it is possible. It is possible.
So besides calming your nervous system, what are some other things did you work on in your healing to be able to manage your triggers when, like you said, they're loud or they have a meltdown or they're crying and they're unconsolable, those kinds of things?
Yeah, so I did a lot of reflection. Okay, so let's say, for example, my son has a temper tantrum and it's really loud and nothing I seem to be doing is helping him to calm down. Then my nervous system kicks up because I'm feeling unheard. But in the moment, you can't recognize that. You're just upset because your kid's screaming.
Right.
But going back and thinking, okay, so I was trying to help him. Then my nervous system got upset and I blew my lid. Why did I blow my lid? Or where did I feel that in my body? And helping myself to understand where that feeling comes from. Because when you're triggered by your child, you're not triggered by what you're not upset by what they're doing. You're upset because of a feeling, a memory of a feeling that you had when you were a child. Right. And you felt unheard, you felt unseen, you felt unvalidated, you felt whatever. And so it's your inner child coming up saying, oh no, this isn't safe. We can't feel this way. And so we explode.
Right.
And so in that moment, you're no longer able to calm your child down. I'm no longer able to calm down my son because I'm focused on my inner child.
Right.
And so he's feeding off my emotions and I'm feeding off him. And it's just this tug of war of whose emotions are going to get louder. So that reflection has been huge for me. Another thing that has been huge, because my kids are COVID era. So they haven't been
right.
out and in society. They've been home with mommy the entire time for the most part. And so we've been doing this journey together. And so not beating myself up when my nervous system gets the best of me, when things go awry, giving myself grace, understanding that I'm learning too. I've never been the mom of a 5-year-old little girl. I've never been the mom of a 4-year-old little boy. As much as they're learning how to human, I'm learning how to mom children of their ages. I've never done it before. So giving myself grace, but then also apologizing to my kids when things don't go the way that we'd like for them to. So I make it a normal practice with my kids to say, you know what? Mommy shouldn't have yelled right then. I'm really sorry. I was feeling frustrated and I didn't deal with it the best way. Will you forgive me? And can we talk about ways that mommy could do it better next time? That is modeling to them that it's okay, first of all, to make mistakes. It's human.
Right.
It's modeling to them that it's okay to apologize, to be accountable for your actions. And it adds to our connection. Because mommy's not just the authoritarian. We have a give and take relationship, even though they're just little. And so I think, I don't know for sure because I haven't been there yet, but I think that's going to play into a healthy dynamic when they're older. That's what I'm hoping for. Whether or not it does remains to be seen because they're not older yet.
Right.
But I've also, on top of all this emotional stuff, I've had to take into account the effect of my stress response on my physical health. So using supplements has been my go-to to help me manage my stress response, help my digestive health, because all of that stress that was stored in my body wreaked havoc on my digestive system and my reproductive, my hormone health. So supporting those things along with my emotional and mental health has been huge. It's an ongoing journey. I truly believe that healing is not a destination. I don't know that I'll ever truly be healed, but I'm on a journey and it's not been terrible.
I like how you normalize being human with the kids and doing what your mom couldn't do for you. Because in the beginning you said, I didn't know where I ended and she began. And when you're validating your kids, which they're still very young and still very egocentric, right? But you're putting that in their mind and in their heart that you are separate from them in a healthy way. And you as the mom are responsible for your own struggles, right? Frustration. And you are validating that, no, you're not crazy. Yes, I just yelled at you. Yes, that must have felt awful. And I'm so sorry. And I'm working on this. Then taking ownership of that. I think that is huge. And it will be interesting to see down the road as they get older how much that helps their self-esteem and what you're modeling. And I think that if nothing else, you're definitely modeling how to be a good parent, right? Because we apparently internalize all of that unknowingly. And then when we have kids,
Yeah.
those are the parents that we are. And I also love how you are noted talking about the physiological piece that you can do tons of therapy and coaching and all this great stuff, and your body is still holding on and it needs help too. And the stress and the cortisol levels and all of that, that
Mm-hmm.
by this point probably needs some help. And I think we're just now starting to talk as women about we need to look at this. This is a serious thing because it is affecting your health in so many ways. And you can't just like forget about it or I'll be fine or, it'll go away. No. And I love how you're also normalizing that for people too, because it's becoming more and more of the conversation, which I'm really glad that it is.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been told so many times in my life, Emily, just get over it. Just get over it already.
Oh gosh.
And it's not a switch that I can flip.
Right.
And I fully believe that our emotional wounds are very, very much like a scrape or a cut on your skin. In order for that cut or scrape to heal, it needs air. It needs to be taken care of. And so our emotional wounds, our mental health struggles also need air so that they can heal.
I love that. I love that concept that makes it so simple for people to understand. Because I think we have no problem understanding the medical stuff. I talk to clients about that all the time. I'm like, man, if your leg was broken, we would not be asking you to run a marathon. Like, we all get that. I don't think there's a lot of disagreement on that. But when the wounds are invisible, you're right. And I think that they need to heal and they need air and they need light. And we know with trauma and shame, we need to share that so
Mm-hmm.
that they can heal. And you're right. Like Bessel van der Kolk talks about your body's keeping the score. Like there's cellular memory of this
Yeah.
stuff. It's not going anywhere. And our body is like our
Mm.
subconscious is what I heard the other day. I love that. That reminds me like, okay, right? Here's your rational thinking brain, but your
Mm-hmm.
body's really in tune here and it does no good to ignore it. And so I love the holistic focus that you're doing. And especially, like you said, you've been told to get over it. And many women have been told to get over it. And it's in your head and there's nothing wrong. And, or it's this other thing, right? Or let's just tackle your symptoms and give you meds and all the things. And I think it's really important to understand that in order to take your power back, because that's kind of what trauma healing, in my mind, one of the aspects is taking your power back and getting back to self. Like the self is the core underneath all the crap that happened, and and getting back to her. And part of that is, asking for help and recognizing what's really going on here. And I love how you're talking about that. And so how you're talking about how your own journey, because that I think gives license to new moms, like you said, and normalizes things for them. And that is so huge. There's so much pressure for new moms to have like happy pregnancies and happy births and everything's all lovely. And they're not supposed to feel like they want to run away.
Tough parts. And is so toxic. It's not helpful to anyone. Narrative that I've heard a lot is you chose to have the baby, so shut up and deal with it. You're not allowed to be upset. You're not allowed to
Right.
talk about the and it increases the pressure on moms to, you know, make it look perfect. Don't show your struggle. be quiet about it. And be quiet about it, it wasn't meant to be done in isolation, nor was trauma healing meant to be done in isolation. So that's where I stand on the subject.
That's really, really important. Now, I was just thinking too that also probably the moms who are struggling the most already have a hard time trusting people and letting them in and letting them help them and to be able to talk about, right, the stuff that you just mentioned, and to not feel shame and guilt. So then here we go. And then we know that lack of support really makes things hard. And so they're already going into it with a disadvantage, I think. And so there's so many pieces here that I can just imagine all the wonderful work that you do with women now. And I want to give you a chance to talk about that a little bit. Like, how do you walk clients through this process and what are some things that you do to help your clients heal?
Yeah. So when one with a client, we walk through the Mended Mama method. So the Mended Mama method is made up of 4 pillars. The first of which is building your trigger toolbox. And once you're able to interact with tools to help you begin the process of calming your nervous system, and then we work on building a relationship toolbox. Because chances are, if you have a traumatic childhood, you may not have, you may not know what a healthy relationship looks like because it may not have been modeled to you. So things like um, boundaries,
Wow.
communication, those
Okay.
types of things are huge.
Right. I love that. I think that's wonderful how you have a system to walk people through because what we also know about trauma is, boy, do we need structure. And we feel safer with structure and guidance to begin with, right? To start out. And then, of course, the client takes it, internalizes it, and makes it their own and expands upon it and all that great stuff. But they have you to guide them. And especially, I think, at a time when you're most vulnerable, right? And like you said, and like your own experience, you didn't have your mom there. That's part of the problem. You don't have the wonderful, family support that you need. And so for you to provide that coaching and that guidance and that structure, like we're going to do this and then we're going to do that. And yes, it's personalized and at the same time there are boundaries around that. And I think whenever we start anything, it's always good to start with boundaries first and then everything else second, because it just helps us feel more glued together and more sane, and that there's a way. It's like you're showing your new mamas a way, which is what you needed when you were sitting on the couch that day. And you're like, oh my goodness, what do I do? And that is really powerful. Well, I think it also helps you take it off of yourself. So, like you said, it's not that you didn't deserve to be mothered well, it's just that she couldn't do it. Just really helping people gain perspective and to see themselves as people that things happen to them, but it doesn't have to make who they are. That they get to decide. Because I was reading in your book, and the sense that I got is, okay, now you get to decide. Now you get to decide, yes, you want to embrace and grieve what happened, and not but, and you get to decide who do you want to be going forward. And like you said, people can try to take that from you, but they really can't at the end of the day. And how empowering that is and how much hope that must bring to your clients. Thank you so much, Emily. I wish we could have included more of what you had to say. And yet I think it just means that we're going to have you on the show again soon. I so value your work, and I think it is so important. And it helps a group of women who are really struggling and then feel ashamed that they're struggling, and so it's hard for them to reach out. And that's why I think if you're listening and this is you, or maybe it's your sister or your friend or your cousin or your colleague, send the information along to them as well, because I think it's so important that we reach out to new moms rather than asking them to go searching for information. They're already exhausted and have enough on their plate. So Emily's latest book, Rising from the Ashes, can be found on Amazon. And if you want to connect with her and find out more about working with her and find out more about her resources, you can go to home.mendedmamalife.ca. And all of that will be in the show notes, and you can go right there. All right, so thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I'm so glad we got to talk to Emily and have her discuss her approach to trauma recovery, the importance of self-care, and strategies for managing triggers and tantrums in daily life, because that is what parenting is really about. And if you want to learn more about Emily's work and how to connect with her, visit Mended Mama Life. Know that healing is possible, that you can manage your triggers, and that self-care is essential. All right, so pay it forward, keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you can begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.